Dr. John Halamka is CIO for Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. He's also a full Harvard professor and a practicing emergency doctor, among other things. And in his spare time, he's known as an author, the Geek Doctor. Aaron McCann, associate editor for Healthcare IT News, caught up with the busy doctor.
Thanks, Ed. So, John, you're one of those people that pretty much makes every person in this world look bad. You study mycology, MD, practicing physician, CIO of Beth Israel. You do some farming on the side. You mountain climb. You just published a new book, which you mentioned you have about 1,000 emails a day from people, many of them being questions on technology and policy. So could you talk a little bit about what is probably the most common question that you've received via email from people in the industry and your response to them?
Sure. I mean, there's two kinds of questions. Sometimes they're exceedingly detailed, meaningful use questions. I am a part-time anesthesiologist who works in a regional healthcare center, and I only work on-site 2 days a week. Do I qualify for meaningful use? Things of that nature. But mostly what I'm getting are people who are trying to figure out how to survive as IT leaders in an era with overwhelming responsibility. So when we look at ICD-10, meaningful use, ACA, the HIPAA omnibus rule, providers are getting to the breaking point. IT professionals sometimes are on the receiving end of that frustration. And so I have to give advice like, don't worry, it's going to be okay. These will be the times we'll tell our grandchildren about. Don't look at your position, look at your trajectory. Think of how much we've done over the last 4 years and how the next 4 years will bring safety, quality, and efficiency. You will survive. So in some ways, that email is group therapy for the industry.
Now, there's one chapter of your book that's dedicated solely to privacy and security. And I think you mentioned that you oversee about 18,000 user accounts, 1,600 iPhones, 600 iPads, and you spend about 20% of your day on risk and regulation and governance. Could you talk a little bit about that 20% and what it involves?
So when you recognize that a CIO has limited authority but infinite accountability, you have to ask, how do you reduce risk to the point where government regulators and importantly patients will say, what you have done is reasonable. So that means I have to think about, how do I encrypt every device, whether that's an iPhone, an Android device, a laptop, where appropriate? How do I protect the data center from attacks internal and external? So much of what I have to do is meet with my business owners and ask, what are the risks? Reputational risks, patient privacy breach risks, data integrity risks, and then in a multi-year way, put in risk mitigations. We're never going to be perfect. Go pick up a newspaper today, and chances are some vendor will say, oh my God, there's a new vulnerability for which no patch exists. But we can put in place what I call a multi-layered defense of policy and technology to reduce risk and protect your reputation.
Now, you're really ahead of the game in the privacy and security arena. You have a strong and well-known bring your own device encryption policy. You have very strong privacy and security policies for employees. What is one of the biggest oversight you see other industry officials making in the realm of privacy and security?
Well, I have 14 different work streams in my privacy and security efforts, so it's a little hard to just name one, but here's an example. In healthcare, we often say, oh, I know who you are, and here's access to this system, that system, and the other, because I know who you are, as opposed to, what role is it that you play? And oh, if you're promoted, your role changes and your access changes. We should be really thinking about access based on what you do rather than who you are. We're all very good at terminating your access the moment you leave the organization, and we're all really bad at changing your access as you, a well-known and well-meaning employee, change roles within an organization. So that's just one, but there are, as I say, 14 that I'm working on simultaneously.
Now let's go back to your role as CIO, practicing physician. You have work long hours. How do you do that with your home life? Do you have certain hours where you just won't keep your phone with you? And how does that balance work out?
So my wife and I will be celebrating our 30th anniversary this August. She's tolerated me for 30 years. Amazing. It's a partnership. And so what we recognize is there are times in her life when she has responsibilities and stress, and similarly with me. And so really my whole family works on, there is no difference between job and life and work and play. It's a continuum. We're all working as a team to support each other. And that understanding is just so very key. So that is, I come home, and whether I've had a 14-hour day with lots of frustration or a 3-hour day that's gone swimmingly, I'm out there shoveling manure in the rain. And that's okay. Everyone understands it's a continuum.
Well, John, it was a pleasure speaking with you, so thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Well, a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks.
Ed, back to you.
And all the Geek Doctor's books are available in the HIMSS bookstore. For HIMSS14 TV, I'm Ed Highland.